In a world gone mad, only rationality and common sense can save it. It's Andrew and Jerry Save the World with your hosts, Andrew Langer and Jerry Rogers. And now, here's Andrew and Jerry.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Andrew and Jerry Save the World, episode 64. Andrew and Jerry say goodbye to Hollywood. I am Andrew Langer.
Jerry Rogers.
And Jerry Rogers bouncing in his seat. Yeah, we've got we got a lot to talk about today. And yeah, you'll notice my screen's a little brighter. I've moved the studio to a different location, so I've got much more light on me today. Yes, I know. It looks exactly the same. It looks the same. Only it's a little brighter on my face, Jerry. Right. So much to talk about, and it starts with the fact that we've got this Hollywood strike going on. You've got all sorts of people saying that this could be the death knell for Hollywood. And listen, as much as I love movies and as much as I love TV, I got into it, Jerry, real quick. I stepped into it on Friday. I was filling in for Steve Gruber, and we had a guest on. And it's Steve Gruber's show, so I'm figuring that a guest who's going to come on and talk about the Hollywood strike is going to be someone who isn't particularly sympathetic to the strikers, but no, he was, and it sort of took me to task for my cavalier, flippant attitude for it. Didn't really move me all that much, but I mean, I'm not particularly moved by this. Hollywood has to change. In light of the economics of Hollywood, the leftists did this to themselves in no small measure because they all went along with the restrictions on COVID, which certainly hastened their demise, and moved people more towards streaming platforms. So I'm a little I'm not nearly as sympathetic as I might otherwise ought to be, even though, Jerry, you and I have both been represented by SAG-AFTRA at various points in time.
Yes, and also it's hard, I think, for average Americans to wrap their minds around wealthy actors, with picket signs.
Right.
I tell you what, if this is about writers and other behind the scenes staffers and those who kind of make Hollywood run, then why doesn't why isn't the conversation about, well, maybe you don't deserve 20 million for your film,
sure,
or 25 million or 100 million or whatever. Maybe you don't put 100 million into marketing your film in China. I mean, there's so much wealth. This is the rich asking for what? Like, what do they want? What these rich Hollywood actors, these wealthy, privileged elite, the ones who go on these talk shows and these award shows to condemn their own audience, mock their own audience, then what do they want?
And asking, and that gets to the crux of the lack of sympathy here, right? When you are promoting an agenda which is essentially anti-American worker and anti-American working family, and in fact you're promoting things that are openly hostile to those folks, you wonder why you're not getting that sympathy here. Listen, I understand that there are a number of different things at work here. I get some of them, right? Actors who are worried about. Writers who are worried about AI producing scripts down the road, actors worried about how technology is changing, is going to change how involved they might be. Like as it was explained to me, right, Jerry? 40 years down the road, AI gets so good that if a Hollywood producer wants to put Humphrey Bogart and Julia Roberts in a movie together, he can use AI to write the script. He could use AI to do the filming and pull out their likenesses. So the question is, what sort of likeness rights do these actors have down the road? And those are legitimate questions, but I don't think those are questions that need to be dealt with over a strike, because I don't think we're quite there yet. And the reality is, of course, that these things change over time. Technology causes these industries to change. And you got to adapt to that change. You know,
Well,
as I pointed out, right, looking at the record industry, the recording industry, something you and I both care about a great deal. Napster, or more to the point, the ability to take your recording, you know, off of a CD or whatever, rip it to your computer and then reproduce it seamlessly, and then share it with others. Well, we can have questions about intellectual property and whether or not that's kosher. The bottom line, it changed the economics of the music industry, such that, you know, musicians are now no longer relying on the recording of their music as a way of generating money, but they rely on live performances. It's part of the reason why concert tickets are so damned expensive nowadays. I understand that actors can't quite do that. But the idea is, well, maybe if there's no other way to do it, maybe the industry is going to go by the wayside. And you know, is this necessarily a bad thing if they're not going to produce content that people want to consume in the way that they want to have it consumed? Or, as you point out, Jerry, right, that, you know, maybe you don't need to pay $20 million to an actor or actress for doing a job. Maybe it all of a sudden makes that fee more reasonable.
look, I'm in favor of wealth and free enterprise in innovation, technology, moving forward, modernity. I'm in favor of all these things. But at some point, there has to be the question, you know, is Kevin Bacon worth 15 million for this job? Or I mean, or maybe better, you know, is Arnold Schwarzenegger and others worth 20 million?
Right.
But here's the thing. The movie industry has gone through this before in terms of technology, right? We went from silent movies to having sound and music in movies. And again, it's progression. I thought these folks were in favor of progress, technology, modernity. Maybe modernity and technology, artificial intelligence being used in Hollywood and the creative arts will help remove a barrier to entry.
Sure.
You know, maybe if it costs less to produce a movie, yeah, then actors might get paid less, but then maybe more people can go and watch the movies. I don't know if you've been to a movie. I have 5 kids.
Yes.
There's 7 of us. We go to the movies. I mean, it's $300.
Yes.
I mean, it's priced out of our range in terms of family budget. When I was younger, we went to movies all the time.
Sure.
On a hot summer day when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, my mother would take us to the movies.
Right.
And in those days, remember, you could stay and rewatch the movies. Like you could have a day at the movie theater.
Sure.
Now
literally, Jerry had this conversation with my dad when my parents' air conditioning went out, and I told them they ought to go to the movies. And my dad was like, "Yeah, but that's great, but that's only, you know, good for 2.5 hours." You know, when I was a kid, I could go to the movies in the morning on a summer morning and stay all day. You know, they had the, you know,
and my dad talks about when he was a kid. I mean, there'd be cartoons, there'd be newsreels, then the movie, but the bottom line though is that, you know, just to go off slightly topic,
no,
the Yankees are in a major slump right now.
Yes,
and they're in last place in the American League East. And what is different this year from other years, the fan base is outraged.
Sure.
Stars are getting booed. Ball players are getting booed. Yankee fans they're furious. There's no other term but just
why
to say,
are we paying so much to go to the stadium? Yes.
So if you're going to make $35 million a year and you have a hurt toe like Aaron Judge, I understand it's his weight foot, i.e. he swings off his back foot. I understand he's uncomfortable. I understand it might do damage, but you're getting paid $35 million a year. At some point, we have to make a decision. Either it's not worth $35 million.
Right.
And we're seeing resentment with fans now. And I think the same thing is true. I saw Kevin Bacon on a picket line. And, you know, Kevin Bacon has a net worth with his wife of almost $100 million.
Right.
Again, so if you're concerned about writers and future revenues, then why don't you take a 25% rate reduction.
Yes, I mean this gets into what we've talked about before, which is the issue, and because I do want to pivot this into the other part of saying about a Hollywood, which is the attack on this movie about child trafficking.
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom. If you are out there, if you are a Mark Ruffalo and getting paid millions of dollars to play the Hulk in the Marvel movies, and you are out there, talking about or lambasting corporate America because corporate CEO pay is so outsized compared to rank and file employees, you should live up to this. It's like everything else in terms of hypocrisy, in terms of Hollywood advocacy. You turn around and you if you're someone who advocates on climate change like Leonardo DiCaprio, maybe you don't take the private jets everywhere and you live a carbon neutral lifestyle, or you spend your money living in a carbon neutral fashion. But don't come out and lecture to the rest of us about these things and then, claim that you can't change. It's funny, Jerry, just on this, on the two in terms of music, because it came up today. I was listening to the 60 satellite survey on Sirius XM. Yeah. So it's the top 40 songs this week in 1966. And it was the Kinks' Sunny Afternoon, which to me is almost a response record to Taxman off of the Beatles' Revolver. I know I'm getting a field here, but let me hear my point. You have a song in which George Harrison is lamenting the fact that he finally discovered that in Great Britain at the time, I think they were taxing luxury earnings at 90%. So if you made £1 million, you got to keep 100,000 pounds. And Ray Davies turned around and then had this song essentially making fun of wealthy people who are upset about having their income taken. Now, I don't know who's right in that exchange. My point is, at the very least, you can't be hypocritical about these things. I'm sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
Well, also the Kinks also, well, I get your point, but yeah, we can confuse this topic with too many words.
Sure.
The bottom line for me is that maybe the market is adjusting because of
absolutely it is,
because of technology, because of audience tastes being different, because of the bad behavior from Hollywood elites. The market is shifting, and so therefore maybe these actors aren't worth the tens of millions of dollars that they're paid. And I think the same thing, this is true across the board when it comes to entertainment. I love Aaron Judge, but he's 31 years old. He hasn't played in 4 weeks. The Yankees are suffering in last place. Maybe he's not worth $35 million a year.
Right. Because, and let's explain how this all translates, right? Because the Yankees they've had for many, many years, the largest payroll in baseball.
Sure. Top five. Yeah.
And that translates into, Jerry, you talked about going to the movies. I mean, when was the last time you saw a game at Yankee Stadium? I think I've only been to the stadium maybe twice since they moved into the new stadium, because the tickets are so outrageously expensive. Right. Well, if I'm going to go see the Yankees, I'm going to go see them in Baltimore or someplace where it doesn't cost me again,
but even
$1,000 to bring a family.
But even in Baltimore, there is in every stadium, if you want to get a soft drink, it's $10 plus. If you want to get a hot dog, it's $9.
My point is, at Yankee Stadium, it's so much more expensive. Sure. And what are you getting out of it in terms of this fandom? And so when you have teams, and you can all go back to the old Billy Beane example, or even the Boston Red Sox, beating the Yankees when they, with much lower payroll sizes, maybe. That wasn't. I know that Jonah Hill's character in Moneyball was an amalgam.
Yeah.
But the Bill James, the Bill Jameses of the world were probably right. You're looking at the wrong things, and this is what you're left with, right? As Jerry just said, if you're paying somebody $35 million a year at the expense of being able to get, let's say, 10 relatively decent players for $3.5 million apiece.
Right.
When your marquee $35 million a year player goes down, you're SOL.
and just again moving back to Hollywood and this Sound of Freedom movie.
Yes, because I want to talk about that.
The Acton Institute had a really good piece. It was called something like a clarion call for more Christians to be involved in the arts. But you see, there is a barrier to entry if you want to make a movie.
Right.
The whole process and then the marketing is so expensive that it really keeps independent those who think differently out of Hollywood. And again, my hope, here's my hope. My hope is that this is a long and painful, expensive strike, and that Hollywood elites are somehow chastened by this, and there is a resetting of the price points of the market, of the appreciation for the audience. Because frankly, here's the thing. I remember one of the football strikes, and a couple of players crossed, and then a couple more players crossed, and then all of a sudden you had so-called scrubs playing with those who have been in the league for years,
with scabs
and scabs. I'm sorry,
and
it went and the season went forward.
Yes,
I'm thinking that this might be an opportunity for those who are kind of on the peripheral of Hollywood to come in and make movies, right, and make entertainment and shake things up. Because frankly, if you look at some of the best product out of Hollywood over the last several years, Sound of Freedom, you can look at things like The Chosen.
Yeah.
These kind of small crowd-funded productions. I think the whole thing, it doesn't work. This is not 21st century Hollywood. They're still living in the 20th century in terms of the market and monies and all the rest of it. I hope there's a resetting. Well, I think it'd be good for the industry, right? And good for us, and good for art.
This really is like the old issue of the collapse of the buggy whip industry with the advent of the automobile. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the example, the economists use this to sort of talk about transformations in markets and people who get beholden to the old way of doing things. Right? If we still were in an era in which people used horse and buggies, right? When we were transitioning to automobiles. The buggy whip lobby would be out there demanding some kind of massive subsidies or a change to the way the market does business to protect the buggy whip industry, which, should go by the wayside. Jerry, I think you said it best, right? Which is this idea. Imagine if Hollywood had reacted, the several actors who could not make the transition from silent films to television. These things happen. But to bring it to the Sound of Freedom issue, because it does get into this issue of hypocrisy and the politicization of things and antagonism. And I'm not saying that my antipathy towards this strike is driven by the fact that Hollywood has been so cavalier or antagonistic to conservative values, but it can all get summed up in the way Hollywood, and I've watched this, I've seen this, I have a, this, Jerry, I think I've talked about this online. I've got a particular troll in my Twitter stream that is a Hollywood producer, and he has been all about, I'm not going to use the phrase pooping. I'll say pooping, for me to poop on. He has been all about pooping on the Sound of Freedom, right? That's the talking point out of Hollywood now. It's we don't like Jim Caviezel. We've never liked Jim Caviezel because Jim Caviezel has always led with his Christian foot. I mean, that's the other part of it, right, Jerry?
He's the actor, by the way. He's the actor who stars in Cry of Freedom. He played the part of Jesus Christ in The Passion of the Christ.
Yes.
And so, and he's very vocal about his faith.
He is. And that's just it. It gets into, before Sound of Freedom was released, I mean, anytime a Hollywood actor announces some aspect of their faith, whether it's Chris Pratt sort of being moderately Christian, nominally Christian, or Jim Caviezel or whomever, there is an immediate and swift reaction. Jerry, actually, I want to dovetail a little bit into something here. And I got to go look it up, and I got to double check to make sure it's true. And this is going to sound like it's out of left field. Are you aware that the two highest paid White House staffers are both practicing Satanists?
I had no idea.
I know that sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory, but it's apparently true that the two highest paid employees of the White House are practicing Satanists. And so when you think about that, listen, I'm not one who sort of wears my evangelical heart on my sleeve, but when you have Christianity, nominal Christianity, being attacked by mainstream Hollywood, and you have the two highest, are you looking this up right now, or am I going to have to?
No, I didn't look it up now.
Yeah. But anyway, so my point is there is something fundamentally wrong in America.
Well, here's the thing too. So this is the first time, when Hollywood writers and actors have walked or struck at the same time. First time since 1960. We're talking about 40, 50, 60, over 60 years. And maybe, I doubt it, but maybe the actors, the writers, Hollywood would learn something about how the movie business has changed. There's been disruption in that industry. What is it, Gen Z? What are we the Gen Z, and then the generation after Gen Z, Liam's age, the 9-10-year-olds. These folks are more interested in video games and short YouTube videos and the rest of it. And for us, we don't want to get off the couch. We like our huge flat screen TV. Right. We like our streaming services. And so again, things have changed, and Hollywood needs to readjust. And going back to the wealth issue, I'm sick and tired of wealthy, elitist, privileged people telling me how I should live my life. And that's what Hollywood does. Right. The Academy Awards, the Emmys, the Tonys, all these award shows mocking, canceling, and frankly, attacking regular people, attacking our values, how we live. And so, you know what? Maybe America needs a break. Let Hollywood strike again. And what is so surprising here is how the left is trying to turn this into the revitalization of labor. How the Los Angeles Times and some other liberal venues have said that the labor movement is led from LA. And I'm thinking to myself, my father was a plumber before he worked for the Transit Authority. He was a track worker. I grew up with men and women who worked with their hands and their minds in terms of small businesses and that sort of thing. So the labor movement, to me, these are electricians. These are track workers. These are men and women who are engaged in work. Not Hollywood. Hollywood is different. And the fact that this is now the labor movement today is characterized by teachers unions, public sector unions,
right.
Who kept us closed down during COVID, and now big Hollywood. So big Hollywood and big teacher unions, big public schools. That's today's labor movement. Right. That is not a good picture.
No, and it's, by the way, it's interesting. I had a conversation on the News Hour podcast, or the Lunch Hour podcast. It'll be out, not sure when, but I had the opportunity, Jerry, to sit down with Philip Howard, who is the author of the Death of Common Sense. And he started up an organization in the early 2000s called Common Good. And at the centerpiece of Common Good is the idea that public sector employee unions are fundamentally unconstitutional.
They are. I've talked about this myriad times. I don't understand how government employees are demanding without conflict of interest, more money from the taxpayers.
Right. Yes.
Another thing too is that in terms of the Hollywood issue, even what we like, they ruin. So you and I love the Marvel movies. We talked about Marvel movies. But what happens is because they make money, they keep on producing more and more sequels and prequels and alternative universes or all the rest of it. And the product becomes worse and worse and worse. I just saw a clip.
Well, I mean, that's always the problem with sequels, Jerry.
But for some studios, this has become the line of I like Rambo, and I like the fact that there was 5 Rambo movies, 4, and I like Rocky, and there's 7 Rocky movies. I like that. But how many Marvel movies are there?
Oh, countless. I mean, I couldn't even tell you.
And I don't get it. I mean, I just saw a clip from the Chris Pratt arm of this
Guardians of the
Galaxy, where they come down and they come out of the ship and there's a little girl, like a bunny rabbit or something, and she throws a basketball at them. We come in peace, and then they throw the basketball back and knocks her over. And there's a rabbit, a guy who looks like a rabbit who's dressed in a suit.
Because they're on a planet that's supposed to be like Earth, only the people have not developed like Homo sapiens.
Well, what a stupid idea.
Well, not really.
I mean, my goodness. Why would the rabbit be wearing a suit? That's the first thing I thought of.
Because it's a well, Terry, I mean, why are the Nova Corps people, why are some of them gold? Why do some of them have pink skin? Why in the Star Trek universe do Andorians?
No, that's different though. No, he's wearing a tie like from Mad Men.
No, because
that would have happened.
All right, no. Because in that world, these mammals they evolved into it's almost on a parallel course with what would have happened on Earth.
Except a rabbit can't tie a tie.
Well, okay, Jerry.
So my point is,
Jerry, if they can't tie a tie,
come on. You have to. I know you have to.
I understand the suspension of disbelief. Yes. I get this.
But this is just laziness.
Wait, time out. No, but I don't. All right, but that's not
lazy.
That was not the point. That's not also where I thought you were going with all of this. I thought you were going down the road of, because they're running out of ideas and because there is nothing new under the sun, what they're doing is they're taking old properties and old ideas.
Well, that's true too.
And the way that they get creative is by doing some kind of gender bending or introducing some kind of woke agenda. Right? We're going to go down this road. We're going to do 1776, but all of the founding fathers are going to be African American women. African American women.
Oh, like Hamilton.
Yeah.
Hamilton.
But Hamilton, at least the founding fathers in that were men. But or the latest,
you're right,
issue, which is this situation with Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, where Snow White has to be a Latina woman, and the dwarves are not really dwarves; they're different people of different colors and ethnicities,
and again, and they wonder why they're losing audience. People aren't coming out to see.
Time out for a second. Hold on, I don't want to get off of this because this is a fun topic to discuss. This is why I'm going to say this. Listen, I would have no problem if James Bond were being played by Idris Elba, right? Idris Elba, who's an African American, he's a black actor. I was going to say African American. He's not American. He's British.
But he'd be a great 007.
Right. He'd be a great 007.
He's good looking. He's strong. He's charming. Right.
Right. What I don't want is for James Bond to become a woman. Right. That's just
or worse. James Bond becomes, he looks like Benny Hill.
Right. Yes. All right. Keep him.
I can see like an actress like in her prime, like an Angelina Jolie being 007 type.
I don't want that. It's like, listen, I'm not afraid. As I just said, I'd be happy with Idris Elba. That would be great. There was a cartoon in the 90s, Jerry, called James Bond Jr.
I don't know it.
And it was supposed to be like young kids who were versions of the James Bond characters. And James Bond was James Bond Jr.'s uncle. And I got wrapped around. You talk about getting wrapped around the axle about the bunny wearing the suit. I got all wrapped around the axle about the idea if James Bond was his uncle, he wouldn't be James Bond Jr. He would be James Bond II. And that bothered me. But
another thing too, just to kind of talk about this from a cultural point of view. Hollywood has been going through this woke DEI, diversity,
Right.
equity, inclusion, and now with the Oscars, so what certain percentage of people of color and
Right.
have to be nominated, and so they're going through this whole kind of DEI, and then of course you still have the Me Too problems, and so. If they're so upset about artificial intelligence, well, guess what? Guess what a robot doesn't do? It doesn't grope you,
Right.
right? It doesn't care what color you are. And so maybe this idea of going toward, more towards technology, innovation, and modernity would get rid of some of these other problems that we have in Hollywood.
Right. Well, that's exactly it, right? I mean, again, it's like everything else. I mean, this is essentially Hollywood's version of, the people who protested against the Industrial Revolution, right? To go
Yes,
back to
that is right.
go back to the Star Trek 6 reference, because Jerry and I were talking about Star Trek 6 and the line from Kirk to Spock, "Let them die."
You know what?
Believe,
You know what?
trust.
You know what AI also doesn't have? Unions.
Yes, well, that's my point. This is what I'm getting to. And then you have Lieutenant Valeris saying, "Remember when in Holland, when the shoemakers did not want to, when they were upset about machines, they threw their sandals, known as sabot, into the machinery. Thus the word sabotage." So, but you're right. This is the thing, is that what will shut them up is AI.
Yeah.
It's this situation. I mean, Jerry, right? To me, I guess there's no going back in terms of, and I come back to my early point in all of this. There's no going back in terms of the theater experience. I mean, not unless, the economics of theater going change fundamentally. But COVID pretty much, shut the door on that. It's interesting because you were talking about bringing 7 people to the movies and how much that costs. And you're right. My wife and I, we will go see movies rarely now. And only for really special occasions, like the Top Gun sequel or the Indiana Jones sequel, things you want to see on a big screen. Otherwise, you'll just say, okay, I want to sit home and wait for it. And again, this is a sea change because of COVID. Before COVID, you remember this, we would go to the movies at least once a month.
Yeah, and also to be honest with you, what's a problem in tandem with this is it's dangerous to go out. Crime is a real problem. I'm watching the news this morning, and there are more and more pharmacies and grocery stores locking up their cabinets and their freezers. I just saw a story about a grocery store in San Francisco that is putting locks on its freezer section because so many people are stealing ice cream and such things.
Sure.
And we know this from reports out of Chicago and Philadelphia and Baltimore and New York that you go out in public, the chances of random violence over the last 3 years, there is a breakdown in civic order. I give you or civil order. There just recently.
And civic order.
But for us, we live in the we're in the Virginia, Maryland, DC corridor, Andrew and I.
Yes.
And so Baltimore City often is in the news. Well, 2 weeks ago on July 4th weekend, there was a multiple shooting event where 30 people were shot, 2 people killed, 18 of the 30 were youth. And the left wants to talk about illegal guns and discrimination and past equity issues, but at the end of the day, what it is a breakdown in order in the culture. Why are these children out? Why do these children have guns? Why this is a housing project? Having a housing project, there were no permits. Why wasn't the mayor's office, the police department? Why wasn't the housing and urban development? None of the authorities were notified. Who ran electricity for it? Who hired the DJ? Who hired the pony rides? The fact is that as of right now, this was a massive, colossal, violent event, and there's been 1 arrest.
Yeah.
I mean, again, because no one's held accountable.
Okay, and I want to drill it back a little bit.
My point is, though, is that I'm telling you right now. I mean, look, I live in suburbia, but however, where movie theaters are usually more urban. There's more a downtownish kind of feel to it, even in the suburbs. And you know what? Bad things all the time happen outside of movie theaters.
The standalone movie theater in the middle of nowhere is not.
No, so you go to right, where I live, where the movie theater is also kind of like if we were to have a downtown, it's the downtown,
right. Sure.
And there are constant police reports of strong arm robberies, of kids running wild, of vandalism. Why would I let my look, Andrew, and I'll be quiet.
No, because I got a question for you.
When I was my dog, Gracie is 13, Maddie is 17. When I was that age, high school age, I went to the movies all the time with my friends.
Right, absolutely,
and not with my parents.
Yes, agreed.
I mean, when I was 13, I'd get dropped off, but at 17, I'd drive myself. I won't let Grace and Maddie go to the movies by themselves.
No, and
not going to happen.
And I'm just trying to think. I don't remember what we did with our girls. Because every Friday night, invariably, and again, whatever crap was playing at the local general cinemas, I would go. Jerry, I'm going to tell this story. Because there's an old Stephen Wright line about the concession prices being outrageous.
Yeah.
And Stephen Wright said, I got arrested or I got kicked out of the movies for bringing my own food in. My argument was the concession prices were outrageous. Besides, I hadn't had a barbecue in a really long time. Would you sneak food into the movies when you go with your friends?
When I was a kid, yeah, I get. We sneak beer.
I would usually get picked up.
We sneak beers in.
Oh no! This is when I was 13. You weren't sneaking beers in at 13. Were you sneaking beers in at 13?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Well, okay, you were sneaking beers.
Not 13. No, not at 13. Not at 13. I would usually
get picked up by my friends before my mom was serving dinner.
Yeah.
So my mom would put like a little. We didn't have Tupperware when I was growing up. We would use old margarine containers as Tupperware. So I would bring a Tupperware.
Bring that in with you?
I would bring it. Yes, I would.
Goodness gracious, you've always been a langer.
I know. Well, that's it. Very true. That's absolutely true. No,
we didn't bring food in with us. But then again, when I was a kid, it wasn't that expensive to get. Part of the fun of the movie was get a soda, get a popcorn.
Right. Well, I still do that. I mean, it's. I went last time we went to movies. We went to dinner first, but then we got candy, we got popcorn.
Yeah, but how much is so? If there's 7 of us. How much are tickets nowadays for movies?
Anywhere between 12 and 15, depending on where you go.
So let's say $12 times 7. That's $84 right there.
$84. I already did that.
And let's say everyone gets a popcorn, a small popcorn, and a soda. That's another.
Well, how much is that? So it's $10 or $9. So 9 times 7 is 63 for the popcorn.
Yep.
Probably 8 times 7 is 56 for the soda. So 56.
That's $200 right there.
Yeah,
that's over $200.
So,
and invariably, someone always wants a peanut M&Ms.
Yeah, right. So that's another $6 a person.
So we're talking about. I mean, I think the last time I went to the movies, we went to go see a movie that Liam wanted to see, and we all went, all 7 of us, and I spent over $300.
That's where it becomes a really expensive nap, because I used to love when the kids were little. We would go to one of their crappy animated movies.
Yeah. And
I would we'd go in the afternoons and I would just fall right asleep. And it was, let me tell you, that movie
$300, I ain't falling asleep in the movies.
That movie Frozen was one of the best movies I ever fell asleep in.
But again, so this
6.
Yeah, but this whole thing with this strike, the writers and the actors.
Wait, before we get back to the because I wanted to ask you something. You raised a point about accountability. And this came up in my conversation with Philip Howard, because he also, I don't know why he obsesses over Baltimore, because I don't think he lives in Baltimore, but he obsesses over it. Obsess is a strong word. I'm sorry. That's a mischaracterization. He kept going back to Baltimore as an example of unaccountable government.
Yes.
And one of the things that I had in my mind, and I raised it with him, but we didn't really talk about it. Jerry, so I haven't done radio in Baltimore now in almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in September or October that I have was on the air at your station, WGA. Now, for years up to that point, air conditioning in schools had been a problem. That problem has not been solved, right? You've been on the radio in the heat more recently than I have. Do we? And
this last summer, at the end of the year in June,
yes,
there were still dozens of schools that had to let out early because of But again, you're right. Look, forget air conditioning. The children can't read or write.
Yes. Well, yes.
I get an example of this. So we have this multiple shooting event in Baltimore City.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And it's been 16 or 17 days. The authorities haven't given any press conferences.
Right. Well, we also don't know who's police commissioner, so it's it's a.
The mayor of Baltimore just dropped that he is having a baby. It turns out that the woman who's carrying his child is also part of a nonprofit that gets grants from the city. And the mayor who sits in the board of estimate never recused himself.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, so the reason why some folks go back to Baltimore, because it is, I think, besides maybe Camden or Trenton, New Jersey, the most dysfunctional city in the country.
And let me explain why I go back to the issue of air conditioners, Jerry, as opposed to anything else, right? Because we know how plagued the Baltimore schools are. It's because test scores and raising test scores takes time and effort, and you're never guaranteed results. But having or not having air conditioning in a school is a binary choice. Either you have it, you don't.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have not solved this problem in the 7 years since I first learned about it, and I know it goes back even longer than that, the idea that you can't install, let's say, even 100 air conditioners in 7 years or 100 HVAC systems in 7 years is insane to me. Again, you just break it down. It's roughly what, 12, 13 air conditioning systems each summer that would have to get replaced. That's doable. But the fact that they haven't done it, that shows you just how dysfunctional all of these schools are.
I tell you how old I am is that I went to high school and I went to middle school and grammar school. There was never air conditioning in our schools.
Well, yes. I mean, that's a whole nother issue. I mean, it's funny. How smells are
smelly.
Smelly, but they're also, memory triggers.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know what it was. There was something the other week where there was a smell. I was somewhere, and it reminded me of I went to camp at Fieldston for a couple of years when I was 4 and 5 years old, a couple of summers. And whatever it was, it brought me back to the summer of 75, the summer of 76 in the Fieldston lower building. Like, it was like an immediate, took me right back, because it was a smell that had to do with warmth and people. Anyway, it was just,
but the body, again, just to, we're at a moment where the culture is, in my mind, at some kind of crossroads. I'm not sure what's going to happen.
It's an inflection point, Jerry.
And this Hollywood strike, again, it's all happening while technology and artificial intelligence is going on, when people are sick and tired of the elites and the privileged condemning and canceling other Americans and the rest of the culture. They're tired of the Me Too. No accountability of the ridiculous equity and the race, the critical race theories and such things that go on here. And at the same time, normal people can't even go to the movies anymore because there's rampant crime, what we used to call quality of life crime.
Yes.
Where there's graffiti, there's break-ins, there's muggings that happens everywhere. That's not a Baltimore or Philly or Chicago or New York problem. That's a problem for suburbia, where you have the potential for violence everywhere because no one's held accountable. That's the bottom line.
Have you?
No one's held accountable. And even here, these actors aren't held accountable. No one's held accountable. Tired of it.
I haven't asked you. I don't think I've ever asked you this question before. When we talked about your story about carrying the knife on the subway.
Yeah.
And I suspect I know the answer to this.
You know what I do now? I'm back to doing it again. I have 2 knives that I bring with me everywhere I go because, and I don't have it on my desk with me. But what I do is I teach my kids, when you open a knife, you say this is a knife, but you can't see it. You never do this. That's how you use a knife.
Okay.
And you punch up.
Okay.
I keep two knives on me, because if someone's going to come at me, I'm going to have two knives.
This is not where I was going to go. Yeah.
I'm just saying, no,
I get it.
But I'm now older than that 8-year-old kid,
yes, sure.
and here we go again. I do not feel comfortable.
Were you ever actually mugged when you were a kid, teenager?
I was never mugged, no, but I was a witness to a homicide.
No, I was mugged a couple of times.
Mugged.
Stopped as I got better. Yeah, mugged. Yeah, but
Well, Andrew, I carried a knife.
I understand that. I didn't carry a knife. Nobody taught me, Jerry, the proper way to hold a knife and use it like this. No one did that for me. But
if you're holding a knife like this, so the blade is here, someone goes to grab you, what happens?
Right, they get cut. Yeah. Yes. But my point is, so I was, you talk about going to the movies. The last time I was mugged,
it was in a movie theater. That's where we're ending the show on it.
Did you ever make it up to Yonkers at all?
Yeah, of course.
To go to the movies?
I've been to the movies in Yonkers, but that was when I was teaching in New Rochelle, though.
So in there was a movie theater called Movie Land on Central Avenue in Yonkers.
Central Ave, that's a bad place now.
Yes, well, but I got
it was bad then.
So I got mugged in Manhattan when I was like 10. Right, and you think about this. You think about again the changing times. Right, you would never let Liam, when he turns 10, go walking around Midtown Manhattan by himself.
No,
my parents let me do that in the early 1980s. Got mugged in White Plains behind a Caldor. My buddy and I were walking over to Caldor from his house. Got mugged, and then the last time when I finally was able to stick up for myself, and I punched a kid out, we got mugged outside of Movie Land in Yonkers, and I punched a guy, and that was the last time it happened. And I sort of understood you have to carry yourself differently.
You do. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to carry yourself differently. You have to never look away, but never look at. You look through. Yes. I mean, my father literally trained me how to walk down Fordham Road. This is how you do it. This is where you walk. This is where
taught you how to strut, Jerry.
Well, but to be aware. I mean, and then even still, my father taught me that if God forbid you are attacked, number one, how to hold a knife. Number two, always eye the person who's coming after you, eye them up and down, and it'll cause them to pause, because they'll think you're checking them for a weapon,
right?
Which means they will think you have a weapon,
right? And you are checking them for a weapon.
Yeah, and also he said never stand. People fight like this. He goes, never do that. You make yourself a target. You make yourself small. You turn to the side. I mean, all these things.
Never start taking off your coat when someone's challenged you to a fight.
Never. Well, that's you get in trouble, especially if you do it in front of me, idiot. Anyway, but the bottom again, I keep on saying bottom line today. I apologize, but this whole Hollywood strike just shows you how there is not just a two-tiered justice system in this country, or two-tiered kind of who is held responsible in terms of the law, in terms of politics, but there's a two-tiered culture. These folks are out to lunch. They don't get it, and I really hope, because I love movies. I love Hollywood. I love movies. I'm a conservative who loves movies.
But here's the reality, right, Jerry?
I hope they get it.
It gets to your point, though. If they're going to continue to produce ever more marginally bad, I'm sorry, that's the worst way to say it. If they're going to continue to produce increasing amounts of crap, derivative crap, then what good is it? I'd rather go through and look at what we've done, what's been in the past. I mean, listen, I am sad that we lose things like Tulsa King, which our good friend David and I were talking about today, and how great that is. But I got plenty of stuff that I can go back and watch that I don't need to go and wait for this stuff again. I will say this, it's one of those things over the weekend, right, where there was a couple of movies came out, like the Mission Impossible movie, which I probably won't see in the theaters. I go back and forth about that. But when push came to shove, as my wife and I were talking about what to do over the weekend, do we go to the movies or what? I'm like, I'd rather just stay home and watch a couple more episodes of the Magnificent or the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah,
because
but
we're finishing that show.
and here's another thing to add on top of this. And I said this on the radio program on Sunday, and that is, I'm feeling the financial pinch.
Right.
You know, the Rogers family, we make a good income, and we're very blessed. But you know what? We're paying 30% more for groceries. The gas prices in Maryland, the DC area, are still $1.50, $2 higher than they were just 3 or 4 years ago. Energy costs. I told you this. My Pepco, my electricity bill has skyrocketed. I find that around this time of the month, mid-month, our bank account is low.
Yeah.
And I said this, there used to be, we always had some extra money around for a birthday, or for if a car needed to be fixed, or whatever, a weekend trip home to Jersey to see my family. We don't have that money anymore.
Right.
And it's not because I'm making less. It's because everything else costs more. The Biden administration, claiming about the jobs, this revival of jobs. Well, their own economists tell us that better than 70% of all the new jobs are rehires.
Right.
They're claiming that, this last quarter, inflation lowest it's been in 2 years. But okay, so the rate of inflation has decreased, but the prices haven't gone down.
Right. Right.
So prices are going up at a lower rate, but we've already had a spike in prices, so everything still costs.
And this is my
through the
favorite
roof.
part of it, Jerry, is that and they're constantly jiggering with the job creation numbers, even after we sort of account for the issues of how many jobs were created or how many were just rehired, right? So they'll make an announcement about job creation, and then the next month or 2 months later, they revise those numbers downward,
sure.
and they created fewer jobs. So it looks like they've created more.
What is the government entity? The labor statistics?
Bureau of Labor Statistics.
All right, so their numbers, 72% of all new jobs created in this economy are rehires.
Right. Yes.
So again, Hollywood tone deaf. Most Americans are reeling from economic problems and making their budgets and paycheck to paycheck, and Kevin Bacon, again, who's worth nearly $100 million, is talking about labor and striking and workers.
Can we now use this as a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Now
I like Kevin Bacon. I like Kevin Bacon movies. I just saw something recently, and he was. I watched A Few Good Men over the weekend.
Yes.
I mean, I like Kevin. Look, I'm not mocking Kevin Bacon. I'm just saying that between he and his wife, they're worth nearly $100 million,
yes.
And they're in the low end.
Yes.
I mean, they're
farmers, Jerry.
Yeah, but so we're talking about these folks who are striking. What sacrifice? This is like the the folks who protest climate change.
Yes, this is what I said this earlier. Yeah,
yeah, and they glue themselves to the road, and
oh my God,
and but they don't want to be they don't want to be jailed or arrested. They want.
How about this? There's a great video out there of these guys in Germany gluing themselves to the tarmac. You've seen this?
Yes.
This guy is shouting all kinds of expletives in German because they're indelicately chipping him away.
Yeah.
To which I said, and rightly so, play stupid games,
right.
Win stupid prizes.
Well, and
which,
again,
of course,
how many out? Yeah.
Which then turned around, and this Hollywood big shot producer, he's not a big shot. This Hollywood producer, this Oscar-winning Hollywood producer, is like, oh well, at least they're sticking to their guns on something. At least they're but
they're not, though.
Perspective
because they need first responders to bail them out.
Yes,
because they need others. And again, no one. Look, this is why Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was such an important figure in American history, and that is he was willing to put his body where his values. Yes. He went and expected to get beat up. He went and expected to be jailed, right? Because it was an unjust system.
Absolutely.
But regardless, he still played by the system's rules to break it. These folks don't want to be. It's like Colin Kaepernick. He will protest capitalism and protest the police state and the American government, but he'll still take a paycheck.
Right.
Like you make a $10 million deal with Nike. You're not sacrificing anything.
Right.
It's insane. None of them are, and it's like these the Greta Thunbergs, Thunberg, whatever her name is.
Greta Thunberg.
She's sacrificing zero.
Yes.
She's become a celebrity, and we talked about the reason why folks do the fake protests, like Kevin Bacon. I'm on strike. Well, you're on strike. You have $100 million in the bank. I'm not sure how you're sacrificing this on this strike. But we talked about the scientist Burlog, who actually did the hard work and came up with a genetic modified wheat or rice that literally saved people from starvation. That's doing something.
Yeah,
making life better. These actors protesting is making no one's life better. It's more virtue signaling. It's like these people who buy electric vehicles. They feel good about themselves, but if they only knew that the batteries and that are required, the rare earth minerals that are required, that the slave labor.
How about Jerry, that they're destroying our streets in America because they're so damn heavy. I don't know if you've heard this, but they're more restricted on roads. Wow. And when you then have to think about how they have to repair roads and the energy that goes into that, and the volatile organic compounds that get released when you have to resurface roads. I mean, again, it is a straightforward issue. Because I don't think you and I have talked about this. And I don't want to. Actually, this is a perfect opportunity, Jerry. I do have an announcement to make. I have signed on, and we're going to still do this podcast. Going to still do the Federal Newswire podcast, all my radio fill and stuff. But I can now officially announce that I have joined the good folks at the Conservative Political Action Coalition, formerly known as the American Conservative Union. I am going to be their director, the director of their Center for Regulatory Freedom. And one of the things we're going to talk about in our regulatory comments are these kinds of trade-offs that are at work, like the story that Jerry put up at Real Clear Policy about ethylene oxide. Jerry, I don't think I talked to you about this, but I had a conversation with my wife as we were driving somewhere about my conversation with Gail Charnley, who wrote that wonderful op-ed about ethylene oxide. And I said, right, Jan, ethylene oxide is a vital component, a vital disinfectant in for medical devices. And she's like, well, I hadn't really ever heard of this. Did I tell you this? No, I don't think I've said it on the air. So ethylene oxide is a gas, and it is used to disinfect medical instruments and devices or products that can't be disinfected through chemical or temperature means, right? You can't subject it to heat. So things like gauze pads or the masks that actually work or certain kinds of instruments. And my wife was kind of skeptical, and then she started peeling it back, and she's like, oh my God, 50% of all medical devices are disinfected with ethylene oxide. And you cannot have a surgery in the United States without at least one piece of vital equipment being disinfected with ethylene oxide. And yet the EPA is moving to effectively trying to ban ethylene oxide without having consulted with the FDA, without having consulted with industry about a substitute, of which there is not one.
Without consulting with Congress.
Without consulting with Congress, right? But my point in all of this is these issues of trade-offs and risk versus risk. These are the kinds of things I'm going to be working on, but it all comes back to this, Jerry. And a lot of it has to do with the EPA. I got hip this morning to something my dad works on, which is that the EPA is moving to ban chrysotile asbestos. And I know asbestos gets a bad rap, but asbestos is used in water purification, in filtration, in other kinds of industrial applications of which there are no ready substitutes that do as good a job. And yet the EPA has gone forward to go ahead and ban it. And this is, people wonder why things are more expensive or don't work as well, et cetera, et cetera. This is why. But this is the kind of work I'm going to be doing with the Center for Regulatory Freedom.
Our old mentor, Fred Smith from CEI, would joke and say that the EPA, other government bureaucracies would ban fire.
Right. Well, I mean, listen, it's kind of the old joke that we would say about the dangerous chemical dihydrogen monoxide. It's everywhere, Jerry. Are you aware, Jerry, that if you let dihydrogen monoxide liquid get into your lungs, it will kill you? Are you aware that if you drop metal into dihydrogen monoxide, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, they all know I'm talking about water. If you drop metal into dihydrogen monoxide for enough time, it will oxidize and fall apart and rust?
Yeah.
We need to ban dihydrogen monoxide. We need to limit dihydrogen.
Well, I mean, right, and CO2, you know,
Yes.
they want it's a not poisonous, but they want to declare it a you know
A pollutant.
a pollutant.
Yes.
But except our trees and plant life need it.
Well, yes, and also emit it. I mean, that's that's the other thing. It was as my dad points out, back during the 80s when the EPA was talking about substantially reducing the emissions of what are called terpenes, and somebody pointed out, well, you do recognize that terpenes are emitted by pine forests. That's terpenes and pine are what we call turpentine. So, you have all of these national forests that are emitting terpenes. Anyway, it's just crazy. Jerry, listen, I know we wanted to do a tight hour here. Yep. You're on Sunday?
I'm not. I will be taking a break this Sunday, and we're going up to New Jersey to celebrate. My niece Maeve is getting married, and they're having the wedding shower or the bridal.
Oh my
shower.
God! All right, they're just having the wedding shower because Maeve's wedding, I think, will be a party for the ages.
Yeah, well, it's going to be in December, her wedding. So
excellent.
She's marrying a nice young man, and so I'm gonna, I'm going up. I'll spend time with my dad and my brother-in-laws and my nephews and Liam, and then Claire Rose, I think her boyfriend might come up that night into Sunday, and I'm going to take him to the Bronx. Going to take him to Woodlawn.
Oh, all right. I am insanely jealous. Now we're going on vacation, so we'll be away, but I am insanely jealous.
Yeah, I'm going to take him. We're going to go. I told him we're going to do an old-fashioned Bronx bar hop. Yeah.
Jerry, we need to, well in advance of next St. Patrick's Day, let's you and me pick a weekend in the fall to go up to New York and do the Bronx.
Oh yeah, sure. I'd love to do it. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, so new episode of the Lunch Hour with Federal Newswire, Alfredo Ortiz from the Job Creators Network.
He's fantastic. Is that up already?
It's up. Yes. I will send you.
Do me a favor, because send it to me, because I'll put it up at Real Clear Policy.
Awesome.
Alfredo Ortiz. Folks need to know what this organization, the Job Creators Network, has done to, first of all, very few people know this, but theirs was the case in Texas that actually stopped the application of the student loan program. Now, eventually, the Supreme Court chose a different case in terms of their action, but it was the Job Creators Network saving billions of dollars because they stopped the program from going forward.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, the tax cuts, the Trump tax cuts, the Job Creators Network were part of that and pushing for that. So this is a great organization.
Great conversation with Alfredo Ortiz. I'll get those things over to you. So go and check that out. Jerry, what do you want people to do?
Oh, find the truth, plant your feet, stand firm. God bless you guys.
Have a great couple of weeks, everybody. Have fun, and please stay safe.